"I've got the perfect piece for the auction," Larry said, his eyes gleaming with excitement as he held up a dusty, antique doll. The doll, with its chipped porcelain face and faded silk dress, seemed to be the center of attention in Larry's cluttered antique shop. Its eyes, once a sparkling blue, had dulled with age, and its golden hair was matted and tangled. Despite its neglected appearance, something about it was eerily captivating. "Her name is Aria," Larry continued, gently wiping a layer of dust from her cheek. "She's said to be over 100 years old and comes with a rather unusual history." He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Rumor has it she's cursed. Some say she was owned by a young girl who died under mysterious circumstances, and her spirit is trapped within the doll, playing her favorite tune for eternity." Sarah, the curious journalist who had stumbled into Larry's shop, couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. She had been searching for an intriguing story to boost her career, and the idea of a haunted doll was just too tantalizing to pass up. "Can you tell me more about this curse?" she asked, her voice steady despite the thumping of her heart. Larry nodded, his eyes lighting up as he launched into the grim tale. The girl's family claimed that after her death, strange things began happening around the house. Whispers in the night, soft lullabies playing on the wind, and objects moving on their own accord. It all centered around Aria. They tried to get rid of her, but every time they did, the events grew more intense. In the end, they were forced to keep her, hiding her away in the attic where she remained undisturbed for decades. Sarah's journalist instincts were piqued. "How did you come by her?" she questioned, her notebook and pen poised to capture every detail. Larry's expression grew solemn. The family, desperate to escape the torment, sold the house with the condition that Aria never be removed. The new owners, not believing in such nonsense, threw her away. She was found by a local collector who recognized her value and sold her to me. I've had her for a few months now, and let me tell you, she's been nothing but trouble. The doll's glass eyes seemed to follow Sarah as she moved around the room. "What kind of trouble?" she inquired, trying to keep her skepticism at bay. "Little things at first," Larry admitted, scratching his neck. "Doors slamming, whispers when I'm alone. But last week, something changed. The music box inside her started playing on its own, at all hours of the night. It's like she's alive, trapped and begging for help." Ignoring the goosebumps prickling her arms, Sarah stepped closer to examine Aria. The doll's painted smile never wavered, yet there was a sense of sadness and longing in its gaze. The music box was wound tightly. There was no way it could have played without human intervention. "Could it be a simple malfunction?" she suggested, her voice betraying the doubt in her own mind. Larry shrugged. "I had it checked. The mechanic said it's in perfect condition. Besides, it only plays that tune when I'm not around. It's like she knows when she's being watched." The tension in the room grew as the doll's presence seemed to thicken the air. Sarah felt a strange urge to reach out and touch Aria, to somehow comfort the trapped spirit she felt emanating from within. "I'll take her," she said decisively, her eyes meeting Larry's in understanding. "Maybe I can help uncover the truth behind her curse." With a relieved nod, Larry handed over the doll. "Just be careful," he warned. "I don't know what you're getting yourself into, but once you take her, she's your responsibility." Sarah tucked Aria under her arm and headed back to her office, her mind racing with questions and the eerie tune of a lullaby playing in her thoughts. The doll felt heavier than it looked, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was bringing home more than just a story. That night, as she sat in her quiet apartment, the music box began to play. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, echoing through the empty rooms and sending shivers down her spine. She stared at Aria, whose eyes remained closed, the porcelain face as serene as ever, determined to get to the bottom of this. Sarah set up her recording equipment and placed it next to the doll. She would capture any strange occurrences and present her findings in a riveting article. But as the night grew darker, the music grew louder, and the shadows began to twist and dance. She couldn't help but wonder if she had made a terrible mistake. Her apartment, once a sanctuary of comfort, now felt eerily alien. The clock on the wall chimed each hour with a mournful toll that seemed to resonate with the melody coming from Aria. Sarah tried to focus on her work, but the doll's constant vigil was unnerving. She felt like it was watching her, waiting for something that as the moon reached its zenith, the music grew to a crescendo, and the doll's eyes snapped open. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth to stifle a scream. The eyes, once lifeless, were now filled with a glowing, spectral light that pierced the darkness. The music grew louder still, and the furniture around the room began to tremble. Aria's tiny porcelain hand lifted, pointing an accusatory finger at Sarah. The journalist's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the doll's mouth move, the tune of the lullaby distorting into a cacophony of screams and whispers. The room grew colder, and she could see her breath in the frosty air. The doll's eyes narrowed, and the temperature dropped further. The walls began to close in, and Sarah felt a suffocating pressure bear down on her. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and she could make out words within the chaos. "Help me," they pleaded. "Set me free." The doll's hand grew icy cold, and it tightened its grip on her arm. Sarah knew she had to act fast. Panic rising, she reached for the doll's back, searching for the key to wind down the music box. Her trembling fingers finally found it, and with a swift turn, the music stopped abruptly. The room stilled, the temperature normalized, and Aria's eyes closed once more. The silence was deafening. Breathless, Sarah sat back, her heart racing. The doll was still, the only evidence of the disturbance, the cold sweat on her brow and the unmistakable fear that lingered in the air. She knew now that Aria's curse was no mere legend. It was a desperate cry for help from beyond the grave. The journalist realized she had stumbled upon a story far more profound than she had ever imagined. This was no simple assignment. It was a quest to unravel a century-old mystery and perhaps bring peace to a tormented soul. She picked up her pen and notebook, ready to chronicle every chilling detail of her experience with the cursed doll. The next day, Sarah returned to Larry's shop, her eyes wide with tales of the supernatural. Larry listened intently, his skepticism forgotten. "You've got to help me," she urged. "We need to find out who this girl was and what happened to her. Maybe we can lay her spirit to rest." Larry nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I'll look into it," he promised. "But you need to be careful. If this curse is real, it's not something to be taken lightly." Together, they pored over dusty records and interviewed the town's oldest residents, piecing together the tragic story of a young girl named Emily, whose life had been cut short in a house fire. It was said that her favorite lullaby played that fateful night, the same tune that now haunted Aria's music box. Their investigation led them to the long-abandoned mansion where Emily had once lived. The house was a shell of its former grandeur, the walls whispering secrets of pain and loss. As they approached the attic, the air grew thick with an otherworldly presence. There, they found the truth behind the curse. A hidden compartment in the wall held the charred remains of a music box, its tune forever silenced. The doll, a cherished possession of Emily's, had been her only companion in the afterlife, carrying the weight of her unresolved grief. With trembling hands, Sarah took Aria and placed her beside the ruined music box. The room grew warm, and the spirits of the house seemed to sigh in relief. The doll's eyes fluttered open one last time, the spectral light dimming as she looked at Sarah with a silent thanks. The curse was lifted, the house at peace. Sarah and Larry descended the stairs, their hearts heavy with the weight of the tale.